Make a little noise for me. Where all the kids at? I love Family Sunday, Good Sunday. Children, scream right now. Go. Listen. Who's annoyed now? Anybody? Every parent in the room. Oh my goodness. I love Family Sunday. I love my family. Love having my family in here with me. Love worshiping with my kids. Hope you guys enjoyed that as well. I am excited. I'm just grabbing my Bible. I'm not leaving. I am excited today. I love Family Sundays. Sundays are always good, but Family Sundays, we do about 4 a year. Always tend to just be fun. They're just fun. So if you're a parent in the room, let me just say this. If your kid is in here with you and you didn't know it was Family Sunday, gotcha. But listen, we just want you to know, don't feel any crazy pressure of like telling your kid they gotta be quiet and they're sinful, right? And so they're not gonna listen to you. But so are you, and you might want to beat them. And so don't, not here. So anyway, I'm okay. I'm all medicated right now. I got my Adderall going, so I'm good. I'm gonna stay focused, do the best that I can. But let's just have a good time and study the Word of God together. I believe that the Word of God revives our souls. I believe that it gives us a strong perspective, really the most helpful perspective of who God is and what He's like. Today we're going to look at a day in the life of Jesus, and so it's just going to be a good day. And so you don't have to worry about nothing. We're just going to have a good time together, get in the Word, and then just go about our beautiful Sunday afternoon. Sound good? Sound good? Everybody good with that? We're good with that? Is it nice outside? I don't even know. Is it nice out? Y'all want to, you're like, hurry up, let's go. We got to go get the sun. We got to get that vitamin. Is it vitamin E? Vitamin D. All you're like, it's D. I need more. That's awesome. All right, so a little bit about what we're doing. We're going to look at a day in the life of Jesus. Basically, I see this as kind of we're tagging along, right? And so we're kind of like jumping into his day. Like he's going to work. We're like the little kid who's trying to go to work with dad, right? And so anybody ever have your kid come to work with you? Super frustrating when that happens. I do that. My kids come to work with me sometimes. They'll come over to the office. Usually it's not planned. It's not like work day with dad. It's like, no, I don't want you to be here, but you have to be here because something happened, right? And so they'll come to the office, and I usually will try to leave them in the one room where I go into a different one. But they always seem to find the kitchen, and because there's snacks, right? And so kids are obsessed with snacks. And so usually it looks like there's been a tornado that's gone through my kitchen, and there's wrappers everywhere. Why children have no idea how to put stuff in the trash makes no sense to me. All of you children, this Discipleship 101, throw it away, okay? It's a wrapper. You understand me? That was serious. But we do this sometimes. My kids kind of work with me, and it's great. It's fun. I did this a couple times with my dad and with my mom. My dad was a high-level executive in New York City, so I'd get all dressed up and like go in and like sit at his desk and like pretend that I was on the phone. Be like, "Can I answer the phone?" He'd be like, "Yeah." Like, "Hello." That was so fun. If you're a kid, you get this, right? It's like fun to do that stuff. My mom worked at a dentist office. So that wasn't nearly as fun. Because you walk in and it's like zzz, and you're like, no, I don't want to go next. But today we're basically jumping into a day with Jesus, kind of getting to work with him a little bit. And we're going to start in verse, first service I started somewhere different. Today I want to start in this service on verse 40. We're going to start in verse 40. And so if you got your Bible, Luke chapter 8, starting in verse 40 is where we're going to be. I'm going to read 4 words and then jump into context, okay? So Luke chapter 8, verse 40 starts out like this. These 4 words, now when Jesus returned. Well, where was he? So let me give you the context about where he was. So Jesus was somewhere. This is talking about one specific day in the life of Jesus. And earlier in the day, he's just had a long day. Some of you, if you're a parent in the room, long days are hard, right? And so I tell my kids all the time, come 10 o'clock, I stopped parenting you. If you're still awake, you're on your own. You figure it out. Tomorrow, it's going to be a problem, but tonight it's okay. You won't get in trouble until tomorrow. because it's 10 o'clock. I put you to bed a while ago. But earlier in the day, Jesus was already tired. He had been doing a lot of ministry, meeting with a lot of people, doing a lot of different things. Lots of people wanted his time, and he found himself looking at his disciples saying, hey, listen, let's get to the other side of the lake here. I want to get away from people. So it says he got in a boat, got on the boat, and as he started going across the lake, he fell asleep in the boat. That's how exhausted he was. But while he was sleeping in the boat, a storm came. A storm was raging, so much so that he was still sleeping, though. He was so tired, he was still sleeping through the storm. It says that the disciples were freaking out, right? They're like, oh my gosh, it's raining and it's waves everywhere and the wind is howling. It's nutty. And there's Jesus like this, in the middle of a storm. Now, we're not talking about like a yacht. Like, this isn't like Royal Caribbean, right? They're in a little boat, a fishing boat, trying to get to the other side, and it's storming, and Jesus is out. He's just like, dog, I'm going to bed. Peace. And he just goes to sleep. And so Jesus is fast asleep, and his disciples go over to him. They wake him up, and they're like, yo, we're going to die. And they're not coming to him like we're going to die because they think he could help. They're coming to him thinking that we're helping you. Like, wake up. If you don't kind of like get aware, this isn't going to go well for you, because they're falling in and out of the boat. The storm is going crazy. And Jesus, I could just see him, because you know how when you're tired and you get woken up, you just be doing wild things. But when you're God, you be doing super wild things. So Jesus is like, what? And he gets up, he's like, wind, stop it. And it did. The wind was like, and then he looks at the waves and he's like, chill out. And anybody ever yell at your kids like that? Yeah, chill out. No one wants to own it, just me, right? You know, it's like, stop. I'm sorry. I have to apologize to my kids all the time. So he looks at and the storm is like, I'm done, I'm sorry. The storm like goes to its room and kicks it by itself for a little bit. That's crazy. The waves are like, okay, fine, I'll chill. And they do. And then everybody looks at Jesus like, yo, who's this dude? This is crazy. What just happened? That was nuts. What? We were trying to, the waves just heard him and was like, okay. That's nuts. That's not nuts to you? You're like, it's Jesus. Okay, whatever. Okay, yeah, you've read the story already. That's crazy. So then Jesus, it gets done with that. They're all freaking out, right? And so he winds up on the other side of the lake. He gets off of the boat, and there's some demon-possessed man, it says, that kind of addresses him. And the second Jesus, he's already exhausted. He's had a long day. Second he kind of gets to the other side, it says he puts his feet on land, and there comes running at him a demon-possessed man. And I don't know if Jesus was like, if he was just about to get Jedi something on him or what. But the guy starts coming at him, and this demonic man is like, what are you going to do with me? Leave me alone. And Jesus is like, what? And he goes, what's your name? And the guy was like, my name is Legion. Which I would have been like, ah! Sorry, that actually hurt my ear. I'd have freaked out. But Jesus is like, oh, Legion, get out. And a demon, or demons with an S, come flying out of the man. And they're like, don't torment me. First off, you would think I'm making this up. Go read your Bible. This is crazy stuff. They're like, don't torment me. And he says, Jesus looks up, and there was 2,000 pigs up on a hill. And they're like, throw us in the pigs. Jesus is like, all right. Boom. And he does. How do you do that? I don't even know how you do it. It's like Jedi Force, like, and and then the pigs, this is true stuff, yo. This is crazy. And then the pigs, they go off a cliff and die in a lake or something. And it's like, I called it deviled ham. So funny. That was awesome. Totally corny, but that was decent. And so this is his day. It's like afternoon time. It's like, it's lunchtime, deviled ham, just moving on. And so then it says, then he returns, okay? So now Jesus, he's doing, this is just a day with dad. Could you imagine, just hanging with dad, going to work, right? And just like, what's your dad do today? Please. My dad, closed a big deal. Oh yeah, my dad looked at the window and was like, chill. And it was like, okay. And it did it, right? So just hanging with Jesus. It was just crazy stuff. So he's with his disciples doing all this. So he gets to so then he leaves the demon guy, okay? And everybody's freaking out because the pigs are dead. All the pig leader, master, whatever they would be, owners, actually leader, master, owners. All the pig owners are all upset that their pigs are dead, right? And Jesus is like, I'm out of here. So Jesus leaves. They ask him to leave. And the demon-possessed guy is like, hey, can I come with you? And he's like, no, you go home. And which is just, that's real life, because in Christian world, right, we like creating subcultures. You guys ever notice this, right? It's like, oh, we're Christians now, right? And so we're going to just shop at Lifeway online, and we're going, you're like, what is that? You live in New England. If you live in the South, you would know it. There's a bookstore called Lifeway on every corner, right? And then we're going to just do business with the Christian businesses, and we're going to listen to Christian music, and we're going to go to Christian schools, and we're going to wear Christian t-shirts. Jesus is my blood donor. He saved my life. Red Cross. Like, this is just what we do, man. We just kind of create these subcultures. And I think sometimes Jesus is like, would you just kind of just chill and stop, go home, be a normal human being, and just tell everybody what I did for you. Stop making things weird. And so the guy does. Okay, so he goes and does that. You guys having fun so far? I'm just giving you a recap. So this is a day in the life of Jesus. So then things kind of take a turn. It gets heavy. Okay, so the remainder of Jesus' day gets heavy. And for some of us in the room, we're going to be able to resonate with this. And it's like, yo, this is heavy. But Jesus is exhausted. Okay, so he's exhausted at this point. He's fallen asleep in the middle of storms. He's been meeting people everywhere, doing ministry everywhere. He's meeting with demons, yelling at them, and they're listening. And he comes to verse 40, and it says, now when Jesus returned, he's coming back to Galilee. He says the crowd welcomed him. It wasn't like one person, it was a crowd. The crowd welcomed him, for they were all waiting for him, it says. And so it's like Jesus comes home, and it's like, I don't know, it's like the DMV, right? You ever show up to the DMV and you're like, why in the world is today like National Renew Your License Day? Everyone decided to do this, right? Like, yeah, anybody ever feel that way, And it's like, get a ticket, you just sit there for 16 hours, and they're like, sorry, no more takers, and you have to come back tomorrow. Anybody, this stuff is like real life for me. This is awful. Hate the DMV. It's like, so Jesus comes back home. It's like the DMV. Everybody wants his attention, and if I'm him, I'm like the person at the DMV. Like, you ever show up, hey, I just want to renew my license. Yeah, well, I hate you. Right? That's how you feel, but that's not Jesus. Jesus is like, he's surrounded by all these people. He's got all this love. Jesus fully God, and it says, John says that God is love. So he is compassionate and kind and patient, but massive amounts of demands, right? Massive amounts of demands. Imagine showing up somewhere and everybody wants you. And it's not like they all are just wanting to be fanboys. Like, some of these people have legitimate needs. Like legitimate needs, right? A day in ministry sometimes can be crazy and exhausting. And think about the pressure of Jesus, right? He was fully man, fully God. And so he laid down some of his deity in order to be in the world with us. And he took on the ability to, or the need to deal with things like time and space and energy, and because he needed food. And so he's tired now, and he needs water to hydrate himself, and he needs rest in order to rejuvenate himself. And he needs to use discernment on knowing who to deal with and who not to deal with and all that. And so all these people are there needing a piece of Jesus. And some of them need healing, and some of them are sick or have somebody else that's sick. And some of them just want somebody to argue with, I mean, how many times have you or me just saw somebody who were like, yeah, I just want to fight with you. Like, we just want to argue with people because they said something you didn't like, or so some people are there to criticize them, and other people are there like, yo, can we just get a selfie? Hey, G, no, G, no, this is, how do you, is it this or G? Or I'm just trying to shorten it. It's just, it's just, people are just there just trying to be with Jesus, and he's attempting, right, as being God, to discern, okay, where does my time and my energy be spent? It's exhausting. It's exhausting. Pray for your leaders of the church. Pray for your group leaders. Sometimes pray for yourself. Sometimes as we're doing ministry together, it could be exhausting. Yes or no? Yes. And so we think the needs on us are tiring, right? Think about all these people who are coming to Christ, who is fully God, but yet fully man, and he's tired. So he's addressed by all these people. And then verse 41, something happens. Verse 41 says, there came a man whose name was Jairus. Now, Jairus was a ruler of the synagogue. He was a ministry leader. He was a ruler in the temple. Lots of people knew who he was. He was probably a very, very well-known leader in the community in those days and ages, in that type of society. If you were a Jewish leader, people knew your name, they knew your face. You were very prestigious in this day. And it says here, verse 41 says, in falling at the feet of Jesus, he comes. And he falls at the feet of Jesus, which is so unlike a man. Unlike a man of that stature, right? It'd be like, think of Trump. Think of your president of the United States. I don't care what you think about him or not. That's irrelevant. But could you see him? I couldn't even picture like him having a need and just kind of running up to somebody. News flash, boom, there's Trump running and sprinting to somebody and getting on his feet and begging this person, whoever this person is, I need you to come to the White House. I need you. Falling down at his feet. Like, it's unheard of, right? Like, that stuff would never happen. But here's this man, humble, coming to Jesus, running to him, and begging him to come to his house. And then you see why in verse 42. And it makes sense, because if you were in this situation, of course you would be doing the same exact thing. It says, for he had an only daughter, and she was about 12 years of age, and she was dying. And so now, whoa. Okay. But now it gets heavy. This man has a daughter who's 12, and she's dying. Now I have 4 kids and I have 2 daughters. I couldn't imagine being in a situation like this. Some of us, we've lost children. And the pain that's associated with such a thing. And this man comes running to Jesus as a last resort. He's a man who's probably had men running to him for help. And here he is, a man who's helpless and hopeless. The only little hope I have left is maybe this man, Jesus, that people talk about can help me. And so as I read this, I have a 12-year-old daughter. I thought about my daughter. I thought about friends that I know who have lost their children, and how difficult a moment like that would be to have the doctor tell you that your daughter is dying. I thought about my daughter Abby, who's also 12, and how much we've shared together, how we have wide open conversations about everything, and she's not afraid to talk to me. I love being a dad to my daughter. There's something special about daughters. I have 2 sons, and sons are great, and that's awesome, but there's something, as for a dad, there's something very, very dear to me for my daughters. You know, I think about the things that I share with my daughters, and I'm able to talk about things with my daughters that a lot of fathers I see are unwilling to talk about their daughters with. And I asked Abby this week what she loves about our relationship, and she shares some of like the sweetest things about how we share life together, and how she loves how she's allowed to at times call Daddy out on some things and say, Daddy, you're not being kind. And how much I appreciate having a daughter who's old enough and willing. And imagine if that was in jeopardy. Yeah, we talk about what her husband's going to be like one day, and how blessed of a man that man will be to have my daughter. Not too long ago, we were at a dance. CCA, the school that they go to, puts on this little daddy-daughter dance. And like, we just sat there, and I held her hand, and the song, stupidest song in the world, Butterfly Kisses, came on. It's horrible. It's not great. And we sat there, and the 2 of us, literally, we sat there, we danced, and I cried like a baby. I did. And so did she. You know, and so I'm thinking of this man, Jairus, and I'm thinking of friends that I have and that I know that have had children that passed away, and how horrible and horrific this man is feeling. He's leaving his home, running to Jesus as a last resort. I couldn't imagine, like, all of this whole future that he had in his mind, Jairus, is with his daughter is in jeopardy. And so Jairus leaves his precious daughter at home with his wife, most likely, and he rushes to find Jesus. But then there's these other people that have needs. And so he shows up and there's a crowd. You know, do you ever feel that way? Like, it's like, I need help, but you know at the same time, you're like, I'm not the only one in this. We all, like, to some extent, we all need help. And this man finds himself running to Jesus, and Jesus is being pressed on from all different people. And he comes to her, and he's begging, come to my house, my daughter's dying. And Jesus, it seems that he agrees to do so. And as he's going, though, another woman distracts the situation. It says that there was a woman who had a discharge of blood for 12 years. And though she had spent all her living on physicians, she could not be healed by anybody. So here we have a woman who's got her own problem, most likely ovarian cancer, most likely. For 12 years, she's been bleeding out. She woke up one day, 12 years ago, it was that time of the month, and that month never ended, turned into years, and then years, and then years, and eventually 12. And in this period of time, it wasn't just that she was sick and in pain and couldn't have children. It wasn't all those things are true, but it was even more than that. She was considered ceremonially unclean. Right? And so she probably hasn't been touched for 12 years. She hasn't been prayed over, most likely. Had a pastor or friend lay a hand on her and say, let's just pray that the Lord, probably had nobody hug her or kiss her, just cuddle with her. It's a woman who's most likely in her 40s or 50s, maybe a little older. And for 12 years, she's been an outcast, not even allowed probably in the temple setting. So here you have these two contrasting stories. You've got a woman who we don't even know her name, who's poor, spent all of her money to get better, and nothing's working. She's hopeless, and she's alone. And the only thing worse than suffering is suffering alone. Isn't that true? And so you see this. You got a daughter who's 12 years old and sick, and you got this sick person who's been sick for 12 years. You got the ruler of the synagogue, and you got a woman who's not even allowed in the synagogue, and you got this man who is respected, and then you have this woman who's completely rejected by her culture, maybe even rejected by her family. But both are coming to Jesus. Both understand their need for Jesus, and they fall at his feet, it says. And it's this picture, right? It's this picture that we all need to grab a hold of, that there's nobody that's too messed up to come and fall at the feet of Jesus. There's nobody that's too messed up that we can't get the attention of Jesus. And then there's nobody who's too good or too great or too prestigious or has so much that we don't also desperately need Jesus. And it says in verse 44 that she came up and she touched him. It literally means that she clutched him or she grabbed him, and she grabs the fringe of his garments, which is like tassels on the end of his robe, or kind of like, so imagine stepping on the woman's dress and she's walking, you accidentally step on her dress and it kind of tugs at her and it gets Jesus' attention. And it says though, immediately her discharge of blood ceased. She stopped. She sensed she was healed. And Jesus stops and he says, who touched me? Now, Jesus knows who touched him, right? Jesus is the all-knowing God. He knows what's in us. He knows what we're doing. He knows what's going on around us. So he's not asking like, what happened? It's like a dad or a mom who's at home and their kid was playing with markers and all of a sudden there's markers all over the carpet and there's ink everywhere. And you go to your kid who's playing with markers, hey, who did that? Like he knows, you know, but you want to give him a chance. You want to give him a chance to kind of come clean. So this woman got clean. But she probably shouldn't be there. She doesn't want anybody to recognize her. And Jesus knows who it is. He knows what's going on. He foreknew what was going to happen. And so he's trying to give her an opportunity to come clean and say, this is me. And so when everybody denied it, you know Peter's got a big mouth. He always has something to say. It says that Peter looks and says, Master, what do you mean who touched you? The crowds are around you. Everybody's touching you. And Jesus is like, Peter, you're an idiot. I don't know if he said that, actually. We'll just jump into verse 46. And Jesus says, someone touched me. Power has gone out from me. And when the woman saw that she was not hidden, that she couldn't hide any longer, she came trembling and falling down before him. She began to declare in the presence of all the people why she had touched him and how she had immediately been healed. And he says to her, probably she's expecting to get corrected or rebuked. You don't touch a religious man like this. You're unclean. What do you mean? No, you're not allowed to do this. And Jesus looks at her and probably says the most tender words that has ever come out of somebody's mouth towards her. And he says, daughter. See the parallel still. Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace. And this is not I want us to understand God is sovereign over all things. He does whatever he pleases, and he always is good. And we are all going to come up in situations in life where we're going to ask God to fix and make better and to heal. And there are going to be seasons where we're going to see some miraculous, and there are going to be seasons in life where it's like we're going to see the miraculous. And the miracle is that God has allowed us to endure and yet strengthened us for this moment. And yes, it's painful, and yes, it seems hopeless at times, but just like Jesus says, daughter, your faith has made you well, go in peace. He can look at us and say, son, daughter, although you have endured this, your faith makes you well, go in peace. And the premise here is not on the healing. The focus isn't on the healing, it's on the healer. The focus here is Jesus is saying, he says, listen, lady, it wasn't the touch that made you well. It was the faith you had in the one who you touched that made you well. You can be well. I'll never forget the song, like, it is well with my soul. If you know that song, It Is Well With My Soul, it's a classic, but there was a man who found out that his kids were, that they were on a trip and the boat sank and his daughters were killed. And as he was coming home, he got a what is it? I was going to say Instagram. It wasn't Instagram. What is it? Telegram. Thank you. It was a telegram saying that from his wife saying, our daughters have died and it's just me left. They didn't make it. The boat capsized and they're gone. And he gets on a boat himself and he starts heading to go and see his wife. And he writes this song, and the hook of the song is, it is well with my soul. And so while Jesus is speaking to this woman, someone from the ruler's house, Jairus' house, shows up. And he says, I can't imagine these words coming out of somebody's mouth, but somebody who is attending to his daughter with his wife at the bed comes and says, your daughter's dead. Your daughter's dead. Don't trouble the teacher anymore. How insensitive. How much this man had no clue who this teacher was. Listen, you can come to Jesus even when the outcome wasn't what you thought it was going to be. And I can't imagine the pain of Jairus. I can't imagine his reaction if he's just falls to his knees and bursts into tears, if he's screaming out, crying, no, not my little girl. But Jesus is so full of compassion and love. And in verse 50 it says, but Jesus, hearing this answer, looks at the man and says, don't fear, believe. Not believe that it's going to be fine, just believe. Believe in me, you're here, we're talking, believe. She's going to be well. And verse 51 says, and when he came to the house, he allowed no one to enter with him except Peter and John and James and the father and the mother of the child. And all were weeping and mourning for her. And in this day and age, it wasn't like a funeral that we go to where you walk in and it's weird and it's morbid and it's quiet. You don't want to talk loud. I mean, this is weeping. Weeping parents, weeping friends. This is weeping. And Jesus comes in and he sees this going on. And I don't know if Jesus entered into the weeping or not, but we know that in death there is a story where Jesus enters into the weeping. And he stops them though. He says, don't weep. He says, she's not dead, she's sleeping. It says, and they laughed at him because they knew she was dead. And they're frustrated. They're frustrated with Jesus. How could you say that? I'm like, do you understand what's going on here? Why would you say this isn't a funny matter? Like she's dead. But Jesus takes this young girl by the hand. And he says to her, child, arise. And it said, and her spirit returned. And she got up. Oh, as a dad, how much we would desire that moment. Oh, as anybody who's ever lost anybody at any time in their life could be in a situation and beg for that moment to be true for them. Oh, I wish that I could be Jairus. You know what's sad about this true story? This true story is a picture of a woman who's 12 years old being risen, whose dad and parents are there. But can I tell you the effects of sin? The effects of sin says that even though she rose, she died. She's not alive today. But Jesus, in his grace and in compassion, he begins to show his mercy and his love and his compassion in that situation. And I know some of us that were in the room were like, why couldn't he have done that for me? And the truth of the matter is, I don't really have answers for a lot of that. I don't know why God does what he does, when he does it, where he does it, how he does it. I don't understand a lot of it. But I do know this, he's good. And he's faithful. He says, you who have faith, go in peace. And sometimes the greatest miracle is not the raising from the dead. It's the fact that a mom or a dad or a husband or a wife can walk away in peace. Sometimes that's the greater miracle. But Jesus is showing us, he's reminding us that there is nothing beyond his control, that death is a nap. That one day, all of us, we will find ourselves on our deathbed. We will find ourselves, whether young or old, and we will be standing before Jesus. And if we've trusted in him, and just like he says to Jairus, just believe, or just like he tells this woman, just have faith, we too will rise. And we get so focused on this momentary period of time that we call life. I mean, do we understand eternity that in 50 million years from now, you and I will be doing something if we have our faith and our hope and our belief as our foundation in Jesus? That in a billion years from now, something will be happening and we will be there. And so will maybe the ones who we've loved. And Jesus is the one who could look at a child or look at an adult and say, rise, arise, come to me, come to me, come to me, fall at my feet. That is the good news. Do we understand that? That is the good news, that our life has been a life of Jesus continually showing us, I am enough. I'm good. I'm enough. Come to me. See, our life is not given to us to present ourselves to God. That is not why life has been given. Life has been given so that God might present himself to us and we would come to him and we would fall at his feet and say, you are great. As way of illustration, I'll show this to us. Most of us, when we think of life, we think of it in the opposite way that it was meant to be thought. And so we live our life in such a way that is trying to present ourselves to God as if we're enough. And the truth of the matter is we're not. We're broken. If you don't feel broken, it's just a feeling. You need to know you're broken. We're broken. And sometimes we're broken not even because of the things that we've done, but because of the world we live in. We find ourselves in this world, and maybe it's us believe, I have faith, and it's going to be good. And then it just didn't go the way that you thought. This was you, and this was me. This is us. Right? And then it's like, I promise, okay, God, I know, okay, if you just never let me to go through anything like that, I promise I'll never do anything wrong. Anybody ever made that promise? God, I promise I'll never do anything wrong, and I promise I won't look at her like that again. I won't undress that person with my eyes. I won't click on that. I won't do that. I'll stop. I promise. I'll say, anybody ever made promises, and then you find yourself and you did it again? Right? This is just life. This is it. This is true. What I love about the Bible is really the only thing that I know where I find a way of life that's actually being honest with me. And maybe it is sickness or death. And we find ourselves in pieces. We find ourselves going through storms, and this is our life. And we find ourselves going through things where we mess up again, and sin gets us. And this time it really wasn't our fault. It was somebody else's fault. But you're still broken, and it broke you. We find ourselves, we're put into pieces. And most of us, we think of our life like this. We're like, okay, I'll just put myself back together. This is just an illustration, but isn't this true? I'll just put myself back together. I'll go to church. Yes. Oh, that was the church piece. Oh, I'll read my Bible. I'll read my Bible. I'll do that. I'll work really hard to make sure that I don't do that again, or that never happens to me again. I won't let that ever happen. Nobody's ever going to treat me like that again. You watch. We'll put ourselves back together. I'll isolate myself from humans if I have to. No one's ever doing that to me again. I'll take medicine. Nobody's against medicine, right? But I got to take some medicine. The Bible says it's good. Take some medicine. But sometimes I'll get better. We find ourselves just living life in such a way as I'm going to put myself back together. Oh, and if religion isn't my thing, maybe it's just I'm going to be a better person. Oh, this is the better person one. Anybody ever lived that one? I'm going to be better from now on. I'm just going to be better. Okay, had a rough day, turn around again, not doing so good. I feel like, now I'll just make a lot of money. Money always tends to be the answer, right? It's my hope and security. We just kind of like do these things, and then we hope, and then usually at some point, almost all of us, not all of us, but there is something deep written within all of us that religion becomes a thing where it's like, I'm going to do good by God. I'll read my Bible, I'll pray more, I'll worship more, I'll sing the songs, I'll give my money, I'll do the religious thing. And this is what we do, and we think that this is the way that it'll be, so we could now present ourselves to this holy, righteous God. And we're like, look, I'm so great. Yay. Look, God, I did it. We're good now, right? It's all good. And even you, when you look at it in your honest moments, when you put your head down at your life and think about your life, you're like, yeah, it's not great. Because even my actions are motivated at times by sinful deeds. Even my going to God to get what I want is just selfishness. I treat him like a prostitute. The only reason I'm coming to you is because I'm trying to get something from you. Everybody hates when our own kids do this. Dad, I love you so much. So good to see you. Oh my gosh, give me a hug. Can I get $20 so I can go to the movies? And that's how we treat the Lord. And the Lord is like, no. Life isn't about you putting yourself together. Life is about me demonstrating to you I'm so good and I'm enough. I'm so good and I'm enough. You look like this, but I'm God and I make all things new. And yes, you won't understand it at times, and yes, it doesn't make sense, and yes, it's painful, yes, you will shed tears, you will shed blood, but Jesus says, I'll wipe every tear. I'll wipe every tear. I'd like to invite the band to come out as we close. I just wonder if you're in here today and you resonate with some of this. I wonder if you're a child or an adult and you resonate with this. I read it and I did. And as your pastor, as your friend, I could tell you honestly, sometimes I don't understand why God does what he does or allows what he allows. But my hope is found in a God who says, I will wipe away every tear and I will make all things new. And because of that, you can go in peace. I cling to that. I hold that like that woman grabbing the fringe of his garment. I will cling to that. Paul, who clung to it, was able to look at death itself and says, okay, death, where's your sting? Where's your sting? And so if you're in here today, I want you to know that Jesus has compassion for you. He has love for you. He has care for you. He is good. And he promises to bring you peace. And there will be moments where you see the miraculous, where the healing does occur. And there will be moments where the miraculous is the fact that you walked away in peace. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, maybe in a year. But he will show himself as enough. And then there will be that great day where you will stand before your holy, perfect, loving, compassionate, merciful, gracious God. And he will look at you and enter into his loving arms and say, come to me. I'll wipe away every tear from this moment on for all of eternity. There is no more death. There is no more sin. There is no more pain. There is no more hurt. I've spent your life demonstrating to you my great grace. And now forever, we will enjoy each other together. And he's saying, I'm enough. I hope you'd believe that today. I pray you'd believe that today. I'd hope you'd find joy today in the midst of that gut-wrenching, horrific moment in your life where it is just nothing but pain. God is saying, I can make it good. Come to me, fall at my feet. Stop putting yourself together. You can't do it. You look like a mess. Just come to me. Come to me. Come to me. Let's stand. During communion, if you're here today and you just would like prayer, I want to pray for you. I want to invite you to come and receive prayer. My wife and I will stand up here. Joe and Lori, if you guys would just be willing to pray over some people, that'd be awesome. Kelly and Ryan, if you'd be willing to pray over some people, we'll just be in the front here. You can come to us, and I just want to pray for you if you guys need prayer. And we'll commune together. We'll eat and feast on Jesus, and we'll find joy in doing it. You know, one of the greatest things is that we can sing and cry out in the horrible circumstance of life, it is well with my soul. So starting in the back rows, we'll make our way forward. We'll take the bread, the body of Christ that was broken for you. That there was a day and time in human history where the Father lost the grip of the Son. Christ let go so that we might be able to grab a hold of him. That's the gospel. That he endured what we ought to endure so that we would never have to. So we'll take the bread, we'll dip it into the juice, we'll celebrate and we'll worship, we'll find joy, we'll sing, and then we'll be sent back out into the beautiful weather, but into the dark world. And we will be light, and we will go home. And we'll share how much God has done for us. Amen? Amen. I love you. You come forward, starting in the back.